What's up, guys? Today we're going to go over the create mod. Specifically, I'm going to go over some of the basics of how you can get started with the create mod, which includes getting basic power generation going, how you can use that power generation and route it to different machines, and then a couple of different machines you'll need for pretty much anything. Such as the presser to get sheets that are used in a lot of crafting recipes, as well as a mixer that gives you a bunch of alternative crafting recipes, among other things. So with that, let's jump right in. All right, so one of the first things I want to show is if you go to the creative menu, or if you have just enough items, you could probably go and find these items as well. But if you go to the creative menu, and you can use the arrows at the top, you will find a create tab and a creates building blocks tab. The creates building blocks are just decorative, I believe. There's a lot of them. They add a lot of really nice looking things that you can use for building. The create tab is going to have all of your engineering blocks that you're going to use for contraptions and stuff. And there's going to be a lot of them. If you mouse over some of these, you'll see that, some say hold shift for a summary. And these are very useful because they'll kind of explain what they do. Some have a lot of text and are very detailed. Some of them also say hold W to ponder. So what this means is that, if I'll go to the windmill bearing and I hold W to ponder, it'll bring up a menu that essentially gives you an overview of how the thing you're pondering works, and how you might use it or whatever. Sometimes when you open them, they can be very overwhelming, especially if you're just starting out. Like I would open these ones and I'd have no idea what I'm looking at or what it's doing or anything like that. They get easier to digest over time, especially as you get better at the mod. Essentially it's telling me if I put stuff on a windmill bearing, I can turn it, I can turn the direction, it'll turn gears. This little thing is just a RPM meter. And it's saying that the windmill will spin and it makes the RPM go above 0. So if you go to a different item, it'll show you different things. Like the mechanical mixer will be you have some gears, and a conveyor belt. You can throw stuff into the mixer and it will make you stuff. They're very useful, but essentially if you don't already know what you're looking for or looking at, these can be kind of overwhelming. Because it's I'll watch it and be I have no idea what I'm actually looking at anyways. So let's build a windmill. So from the menu, it says that we can, take the bearing, we can put a block in front of it, and then attach some sails. I don't know what the trap doors are doing, so I'm going to ignore those. But we can take these sails here. So I already have some in my inventory. I actually have multiple. I don't know how this happened. Okay. I have 2 of everything. So the windmill bearing itself is made using this recipe where you have some sort of stone, a wood slab, and a shaft, which is made with 2 andesite alloys. These are made, at this stage, you'll probably need this recipe down here with the 2 iron nuggets and the andesite. You can make them more efficiently later with the mechanical mixer, and I'll show you how we can get the mechanical mixer working, but we need to get the windmill first. The sails are made using this recipe where you have 2 sticks, a wool, and an andesite alloy again. So what we want to do is I'm going to build up a few blocks. So we want to place the windmill bearing, and what will happen is the sticky side of the windmill bearing is where we put the windmill, and the opposite side is the part that spins. And this thing is how we can power our contraptions or whatever we're trying to do. So to build the actual windmill itself, what we want to do is place some sort of block in the middle here. I don't think it matters which block this is. And then we want to place sails. I like placing them vertically like this, where we go up like that, up like this, and then just kind of go around like this. But I think you can place the sails however you want, and it will still work as long as the sails are attached to the middle block here. And you'll know that if they start spinning once we activate it. Something that's also nice is some blocks in Create Mod will also allow you to place them on the sides without actually having to go to the sides. So you can kind of see this like arrow is pointing to the highlighted thing. I can place them on the sides without actually having to like go up and look at the thing, which is really nice. Okay. So now, I'm going to back up a little bit. So now that we have this, what we want to do is right click our windmill bearing. It says that, you know, right click the bearing with an empty hand to attach the structure you just built in front of it. So attaching it essentially takes the blocks that we can like, you know, destroy and build and turns them into an entity. So now the windmill is able to take them, but because they're an entity, we can't like interact with them in any way anymore without, you know, some specific like create structure or something in order to interact with it. If you want to edit it, you can right click it again and make sure you right click like the corner. Don't right click these like little square sections because these do something else. I think these change the direction. I feel like it says click and hold to edit. Oh yeah. Yeah, we can change the direction. Yeah, you can right click again and then we can edit it and then we can right click it again just to add it. The windmill specifically will go faster at every 8 sails you add. So it adds a single RPM for every 8 sails. So in our case, we have 16 sails. So it's going at 2 RPM. If we were to add more sails, whoops, which I can just do real quick, we can make it go a lot faster. And sometimes you kind of need it to go faster, either because you just need more power, because sometimes if you just attach too much stuff to the windmill, you will overload it and it won't be able to work anymore. And sometimes some contraptions actually need to go a certain speed in order to work at all. Like there's a threshold speed. So yeah, now we can see if we right click this, it'll go a lot faster. Or faster, maybe not a lot faster. So yeah, this is nice. Again, I don't think it matters how you add the sails, but it will, you know, it'll move faster. All right, so something I want to mention is that this block in the middle here, it will spin and the sails spin with it because the block in the middle will stick to the sticky part of the windmill bearing and then sails will basically just stick to everything else, I think. But what happens if you put other blocks next to the block in the middle and they're just like normal blocks, is if you try to turn it on, they will get stuck there because they're not stuck to the block in the middle and therefore it won't end up getting added to the entity for the windmill. There's a few options for dealing with this. One of the easiest ways to do it is there's a linear chassis or a linear chassis that you can use. And essentially it solves that problem immediately where you can make an arbitrary shape and they will all kind of stick together and they will spin with each other, right? So if I were to place this down and they have to be facing the same direction, we could see that this will add this part and then the sails get added to the block because again, they kind of just stick to everything. So that's one method. Another method is you can use Superglue. So if I want to add logs like this, like if I specifically want to add logs, we can make Superglue, which the recipe is 2 slime balls, an iron nugget, and an iron sheet, which we will get to later in the video. And also just for completeness, the recipe for the linear chassis is wood and then 2 andesite alloys on either end. So the Superglue, you can right click one side and then you right click a different block and it will show you kind of like what's going to get stuck together or not. So if I want to make it where it sticks to the middle block, I would click the middle block and it will kind of give me this outline, right? And if I'm holding the Superglue, it'll outline what is superglued to what. So now we can see that if we right click it, it will work the same way as the linear chassis did, where they'll stick together and they get added to the windmill and everything will work accordingly. If you want to get rid of the Superglue thing, you could just hold the Superglue where it highlights it and then you left click the area. And yeah, in that case, you can use whatever blocks you'd like. So I think in the windmill bearing video, it showed you trap doors, right? And this is how they were able to add those trap doors on these sides here, is with Superglue. So that is a way to mitigate that if you need to make more exotic contraptions. All right, so now we can use our windmill in order to power some machines. So I think one of the first machines you need in the base create mod And the reason I say that is because if you're in a mod pack or something, all the recipes are probably going to be different. So it really just depends on which mod pack you're using, or if you're using standalone create like I am. But what we want to do is find a, I forget what it's called, a presser, I believe. And it's going to look like a thing. Yeah, here we go, mechanical press. That's what it's called. I think most of the time you need to make one of these right out of the gate. The recipe, at least in base create mod, is a block of iron, another shaft, which is made with this recipe again. And you also need a densite casing, and I'm trying to find the thing again, which is made, with a deployer. Okay. We might need to make this one. Okay, never mind. You can make it automatically, but you also can make it not automatically. So to get the densite chassis, casing, sorry. What we need to do is get a log. I think this can be any, it might have to, I think it has to be stripped. I think it has to be a strip log. I might be wrong about that. I'll try it with a not strip log. And then we need to get the densite. I can't spell. My microphone's in front of my keyboard and I can't see the keys. So I'm just like going blind here. And you can right click the top of it. And yeah, it has to be a stripped log because it's not letting me do it with that one. And that will give you a densite casing. So then you can pick it up and get a bunch of those. So then what we want to do is make that mechanical press, which I'm just going to spawn in. And I believe sometimes you also want a basin with it, depending on which mod pack you're using. I think in our case, we don't care. We can just put it above a block. So if we go and ponder the mechanical press, it's going to say that if you connect some gears in the back of it and spin this thing right here, you'll essentially be able to press ingots into these little like sheet things. That's basically all it's telling us. And now it's going to say we can automate it and things like that. But first things first, let's just get it to work at all. So we can, I'm going to give it one block in between it. You want to press it into a block. So usually you want to like have a block in between it and the uncompressed presser. So we can see that this has a shaft here, and the windmill has a shaft here, and we need to get these two things to spin each other. So this can be done using a whole bunch of cogwheels or large cogwheels. Cogwheels are just that. They essentially are like gears where you can have them spin each other, and they can also attach to shafts, and those things also allow you to spin other gears and stuff. I might have built this in like the worst possible way, but we'll make it work. So I'm going to spawn in a bunch of these, and I'm going to spawn in a bunch of shafts as well. And like these are this recipe, the same exact thing that we were using to craft other things. So we can attach the shafts to the windmill, and we can see that they spin, but that doesn't really help us with this problem here. So we need a cogwheel, and what we also need to do is rotate the cogwheel 90 degrees. I don't know if you can do that with the small ones. It doesn't seem like it's letting me because we need it to be like horizontal, right? We need it like this orientation. I do know that you can do these with the large cogwheels. So these are made with this recipe where it is a shaft and two planks, or a cogwheel and another thing. And I forgot to show the recipe. This is just a shaft and one plank. So we get a large one. So what we can do is put the large cogwheel here, and then now we can put one that is like horizontal that allows us to turn it. So we need one that's this direction, so that the shafts, so the shafts are facing the same direction. Okay, so now that we have that, I think I did do it in a really terrible position. Placement matters because it will greatly uncomplicate your gear process in order to get the things to turn. I'll just show you just in case, that's not possible to simplify it. So I need to turn this thing. So I'm going to bring this to like the same level. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attach a cogwheel here, and we're just going to kind of move it over to this shaft. So now we can see that this shaft is turning with the windmill. And if I were to put an ingot if I spell down onto this little thing, we'll see that this will start coming down and it will very slowly press our ingot into a sheet or whatever they're called. Iron sheet. Yeah. All right. Now we're talking. Yeah. So now we can do that. You can stack them if you want, and it will still do it one at a time. But you don't have to sit there and feed it constantly. You just have to make sure you go back and grab the items again. Now, something that's useful is if you need to go a very large distance. So like, let's say we had a cogwheel like way out here that we needed to turn. So like I had a machine. Hello? I had a machine that I needed to turn way out here. We don't really want to have to make like a bunch of cogwheels like this in order to turn it. Something you can do instead is use a mechanical belt. So I have a bunch of these. In the base mod, it takes 6 dried kelp. So you can make them pretty early on without needing to do additional stuff. I know in the Create and Beyond mod, it takes like dried rubber or something that you need to use the presser for and stuff. So be aware that it might be different in modpacks. But what we can do is we can right click one of the shafts. And then if we go exactly horizontally or exactly vertically, you'll see this like little thing and you can right click another shaft to connect the two. I don't think you can go diagonally in any direction, but you can go like in one dimension only, but it will connect like that. So now we can see that the two shafts are spinning each other just like we would have if we had a bunch of cogs. And this is very useful in order to save on cogs. The mechanical belt is also the belt that you were seeing in the Pondering. Like if I go to the mechanical press and I speed it up somehow maybe. I don't know how the controls work ever. This one? Yeah. This is the same like conveyor belt. It's the same mechanical belt there. And supposedly items will stop on the belt to be processed, which is very convenient. So in our case, sometimes I just like getting started and I don't want to have to make a bunch of stuff to make items. But theoretically, what we could do is like add a belt here. And it would automatically process our items, assuming that I started turning the belt and all that fun stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. It's very useful and it's very nice for automating structures. We might be able to automate this in a minute. But yeah, so it can also be used to turn shafts by themselves so that you don't have to use a bunch of cogwheels. All right, so now that we have a way to make iron sheets and copper sheets and other things, what we can do now is make a mechanical mixer, which is the thing I said I was going to show you how to make in order to do the zinc crafting recipe for the densite alloy. So the mechanical mixer essentially just mixes things together in a basin. You need a basin, which I'll show you here in a second. You'll throw multiple items in and it will make you an item, assuming that there is a recipe that makes sense. So the mechanical the mechanical mixer requires a cogwheel, another andesite casing, which you can do by doing the stripped log and right clicking the alloy onto it. And it also requires a wick, which takes 2 more of these things and 5 iron sheets. So once we can make a mechanical mixer, what we can do is attach it to our redneck thing. I'm going to do it the same height just so I don't have to move a whole bunch of stuff. Let's do it there. And this actually has a gear on the side. So now we need it to be horizontal, which means we can just steal it from awkwardly from this one. I gave the whole spiel on how to make the mechanical belt to avoid doing this, and then I do it anyways. Okay, so we have a mixer now, and it's spinning. Our thing didn't break, which I'm actually surprised about, because they can break if you overload it, which I can explain in a minute. But anyways, we have a mixer. What we want to do is place a basin under it, and a basin is made with this recipe where we have andesite alloys. And what we can do now, and I believe the mixer is all we needed to make those, we should be able to take zinc nuggets, which are made from zinc ingots, which are made from smelting raw zinc that you mine directly when you mine zinc. So if you've mined a zinc in the ground, you probably have this one, I think. I don't know where you get this one, but you'll get this one. Okay, so now we should be able to throw a bunch of those in, and we should also be able to throw a bunch of andesite into the thing as well. And then we should see that it will kind of dip down into it, and start mixing them. And I might have missed a recipe. Hold on. You might need like water or something also. And that would be why. Let's see. Mixing. We need andesite. We need a zinc ingot. No heating required. It might be a speed requirement. Is exactly what it would say. Yeah, it's not rotating fast enough. Cool. All right. I forgot about that. Okay. I don't know how fast it needs to go. I wonder if adding more sails would fix this, or if we have to pull out the like a gear shift thing. There's a way to upscale the speed, and that might be what we need right now, but we can also maybe just brute force it with a bunch of sails. All right, so I've added a comedically large number of sails to the windmill. I think this should make it go fast enough now to work. So if I go down here and put in all of our items, I should be able to right click it and it should be able to spin the mixer. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know how to get the items out of the basin like this, to be honest. Like if you right click it, I think it just resets all the stuff. Maybe it like gives you some and then it gives you the rest of the unprocessed ones. If you ponder the mixer, it'll show you like that you can put a conveyor belt under the basin, and it will deploy the items like onto the conveyor belt like that. So usually because I'm lazy and I don't really feel like setting up all of the automation all at once, is I can just make a belt that doesn't move and it will still dump the items onto the belt. I can right click the belt to grab them. And this just kind of lets me, you know, get the ball rolling in the mod without having to set up all of my automation first. If you want to do that, that is totally good because it'll save you a lot of time later. But this is just a way to get the items if you're just trying to make a thing at all. Okay. So with this comedically large windmill, if you don't want to have to add a whole bunch of sails like this, because these aren't cheap, there are options in order to up the RPM if you have a like reasonable stress capacity on your thing. So what those things mean, the RPM is just how fast the gears are spinning, and specifically how fast your machine is spinning. So as we saw, if I cut off a bunch of the windmills, it doesn't have enough speed to move. Like it moves, I guess, but it doesn't have enough speed to work. So that is an RPM problem. There's also, after I fix our windmill, stress capacity. So if you fixing the windmill. If you go to the menu, you'll see that a lot of them have a kinetic stress impact. The generators have a kinetic stress capacity as well. And I think the windmill is medium capacity. Yeah. So what this essentially means is that if you add too many things that are high stress or a lot of really low stress things, you can overload your generation. So like if I added a whole bunch of stuff to the windmill, I could end up overloading the windmill because there was just too much like stress impact on the entire system. And this is like if you attach everything to a single like windmill source or a single water wheel or something like that, it might break and it'll tell you that. If you mouse over it, it'll probably be like, oh, it's overloaded or there's too much stress or something. Different items have different amounts of stress. So like the crushing wheel that crushes items together has a higher stress impact than does like a cuckoo clock or something, which means you can have more cuckoo clocks on your windmill or something than crushing wheels. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, your options for RPM come from an adjustable chain gear shift, which I'm not going to get into in this video because it requires a bunch of stuff. In particular, it requires a deployer. But essentially what it does is it lets you use chain gear shifts, and it lets you double the RPM. So you can see from the little video, the RPM now here is going twice as fast as the source RPM. And I can just show you this as well because it's easier to see it than it is to watch it, a video within a video. So I have an adjustable chain gear shift and a encased chain drive. The encased chain drive is made with a recipe we can make now. And these by themselves, what they do is they just turn the shaft inside of them together, much like a mechanical belt. Whoops. Yeah, much like a mechanical belt. They just turn the shafts together. You can also rotate them using a wrench, I think. Like if I use a wrench, I can right-click them and the shafts will still turn, which this is an alternative to this thing that we did here. And I think it's convenient if you have to do it in like a really small area, or you have to do like a whole bunch of them all at once. Now what we can do is we put the adjustable chain drive on the source block. So this is going into the adjustable chain drive. And then what we do is we power it with some sort of redstone. I use a lever. And we can see that the RPM on these ones will double. So now these ones going a lot faster than this one is. And this is another alternative to getting this thing to go faster without having to make a bunch of sails like this. The reason I'm not going to get into it in this video is because this crafting recipe is kind of complicated. You need an electron tube, which requires this thing, which requires a deployer. The sandpaper is pretty easy to make. It's just sand and paper in the crafting recipe. This recipe is not too bad. It requires nether quartz. And the deployer is another machine that you can make. I won't get into it. Essentially, it's like the presser, where it will just poke your item with the sandpaper and it will make you your electron tube thing. The deployer also does other things if you watch the Pondering. It can like place blocks and do stuff like that. Here we go. Yeah, place blocks, use items, activate blocks, harvest blocks, attack mobs, etc. Or in our case, for the adjustable chain gear shift, it would be sanding it. Anyways, so I think those are some of the basics that you will need for the create mod. The presser and the mixer are two, I think, of the most fundamental ones that you're probably going to need for most other things. Certainly the presser, because a lot of things take sheets. A few other very useful machines that I haven't already mentioned are the millstone, which essentially lets you grind up materials in order to have ground up materials and make crafting recipes with those and stuff. Another one is the crushing wheels, which essentially lets you get better recipes. They essentially have like more efficient recipes for grinding things up. Like take this one, for example, you have redstone, or you can get almost like 6 or 7 redstone from it instead of like the 3 or 4 that you might normally get. As well as, a lot of other ores and other things. Water wheels are very useful. Water wheels are kind of like windmills, where if you pour water over the top of them, they'll turn, and then you can use the shaft and attach machines to them as the same way as you would a windmill. Water wheels are especially useful for like one-off things. Like if I have a single machine I need to do. For example, this thing, I could have just attached a water wheel and then had some flowing water here, and it would have been much easier than all of this nonsense. They have a much lower stress capacity though, so you want to watch out for that. Chutes are useful in order to get items onto conveyor belts and stuff. The deployer is useful for doing a whole bunch of different things, such as placing blocks and things that we saw. The portable storage interface is very nice if you have, for example, an auto farmer that's spinning around. As we said at the beginning of the video, I can't interact with this in any way. If I had a chest on this, I wouldn't be able to open the chest. The portable, where is it? The portable storage interface lets you essentially grab items from a spinning entity and deposit it into a non-spinning thing. So that is something to keep in mind if you're making a farm or something like that. The cart assembler is useful for attaching things to a minecart instead of having it be spinning around like this. And also mechanical bearing is useful if you want to have something spin, but you don't want to have a bunch of sails on it. It's essentially a windmill, but you power the spinning rather than it powering its own spinning, if that makes sense. So for example, if you want to make an auto farmer, you might want one of these that you spin faster, that you get the power from somewhere else. So I think those are some of the machines that I would look at first, but I would recommend just pondering a bunch of them and trying to get a feel for what some of them do, even if most of them will be a little bit complicated at the beginning as you're still learning. All right, guys, that'll be it for this video. I hope I was able to shed some light on how to get started with the Create mod. I know it can be a little bit hard to know what to do at the beginning, and I hope that I helped with that a little bit. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you next time.